From Cambridge, Massachusetts, WHDH Public Affairs presents the Harvard Law School Forum. Tonight, recorded highlights on the subject LSD, Methods of Control. The featured speakers this evening are Dr. Timothy Leary, Castalia Foundation, and Dr. Norman E. Zinberg, Harvard Medical School. Now, to introduce Dr. Leary, here is the moderator, Professor Neil Cheyette, Assistant Professor of Legal Medicine, Boston University.
Tonight we're going to talk about LSD. The thing that I have been reading about LSD, and I expect many of you have been reading much about it, on the one hand, it seems to be that it is considered a breeder of psychosis, of panic, death, suicide. And on the other hand, if you look at the September issue of Playboy, I have a battered I think all Playboys are battered. They publish them that way. But the Playboy article implied that there was some other gratification to taking LSD and that it was in reality a kind of a euphoria. Tonight we're going to find out something about it, and our first speaker is a man whose name I'm sure is familiar to all of you, Dr. Timothy Leary, who was born in 1920 in Springfield, Mass. He stayed a short time at West Point and then moved on to the University of Alabama, where he received his A.B. and then his master's from Washington State University and a Ph.D. from the University of California. He's taught at the University of California and the medical school there, and at Harvard, where he was a lecturer on clinical psychology in the Department of Social Relations. His legal position, which many of you are interested in, I'm sure, is less clear at the moment. He's never sure who's going to meet him at the airport. But I'd like to now introduce Dr. Timothy Leary. Dr. Leary.
I'm very happy to be here tonight. I have a great fondness and respect for Harvard. I might say about Harvard, as Hank Bauer, the manager of the Baltimore Orioles, might have said about the Los Angeles Dodgers. I think Harvard is the best university in the National League. I think Harvard is the best secular institution in the world. If I had to this institution. However, I play in a different league. Harvard is a secular institution, and my business has to do with the sacred or the religious. Which brings me to my text, the text of my sermon tonight. I'm taking it from a hymn written by a modern holy man, Bob Dylan. The name of the hymn is I Ain't Gonna Work on Maggie's Farm No More. Like Maggie's mom, I'm going to talk tonight about God and man and law, and about the relationship between these two issues. What should we render to society, and what must we insist on preserving to ourselves and our sense of divinity? And of course, the relationship of the law of God and the law of man has always been confused. God and Caesar, church and state. It seems to me that, in general, the state and society is interested that man do good, whereas people in my profession are interested in having man feel good. Society says you must do right. We try to teach you how to feel right. Now, first, I should define my terms, man and God. By man, of course, I mean society, social man, and the law which governs what man does to other men is certainly necessary. We need morals. We need to determine right action. We have to protect one man or one woman from another man or another woman. There's no disagreement here. Caesar has his province, or I should say the many Caesars can fight over their provinces. You want to play baseball, there have to be rules. There are laws which govern property, maritime law, fiscal law, theological law, which determines the length of robes, and so forth. We need laws to govern such external events. Now let me talk for a minute about God. The province of God, the territory of God, the realm of God. Where is it? The realm of God is the human body. The gates of Eden are the senses. The perimeter of heaven is your skin. The temple is your body. Now what I'm suggesting is a highly orthodox and ancient doctrine. Christ said it in all of his Gospels. The kingdom of heaven, where is it? It's within. In the Gospel of St. Thomas, Christ says, if you think heaven is up there, the birds will get there before you. Or if you think it's down there, the fish will get there before you. Seek the kingdom of heaven within. And what does he mean by within? He means within. So said Hermes, so said the Buddha. The language of God is not English nor Latin. The language of God is cellular and molecular. Now I want to suggest a very simple rule to clarify this ancient and agonizing confusion about abuse and control, freedom, regulation. My simple rule would have prevented the 30 Years' War in the past, and it can prevent what will become a 30 Years' War in the immediate future over the use and control of psychedelic drugs. It's a very simple golden rule. What is without, what is behavioral, what is overt and visible, belongs to Caesar and the law of God. I'm sorry, the law of man. But what is within is God. Now, who is God? I am God. But you are God too. Now, in our society, a person who goes around saying, I am God, is likely to get into trouble. At other times in our Judeo-Christian and Protestant culture, you could be killed, burned, quartered, and drawn for that simple statement. I am God. Today, the person who says, I am God, his wife calls the doctor. The doctor calls him a psychiatrist. And if he insists upon repeating this claim, such a person is likely to end up, not a mistake or in prison, but in our modern locale for such incarceration, the mental hospital. Now, for most of human history, and even today in most of the world, particularly the Eastern world, the man who says, I am God, is likely to get this reaction. His neighbor will say, congratulations, you finally caught on. The standard term of greeting in India is namaste. Namaste means not hi babe or hello there. It means I salute the God within you. Now, let me define a little more empirically and operationally what I mean by the phrase, I am God. I mean that nothing exists out there except that is registered in my consciousness, in my nervous system. I create my universe. You create your universe. Believe it or not, and we may not want to take credit for it, but we're stuck with it, I created this room. And you created it too. I didn't create it for you, but I created this room by having accepted the ontological possibility of a Harvard Law School forum, and having transported myself here, I had plenty of choices not to create this room. I could have stayed in India under a bamboo tree writing poetry 2 years ago, in which case I would never have heard of this evening's forum, nor created this room for this particular cosmic drama tonight. There's a tremendous latitude which develops from this conception of consciousness. Anything is possible because your consciousness creates it all. I can create a world in which I am Napoleon or Nathan Pusey, and you can't pass a law against my believing it. You see, everything is paranoia in the sense that everything that we think and experience is a systematized delusion. It's all centered in your nervous system. Now, when I act on my paranoias, if I walk into President Pusey's office tomorrow and say, I'm Nathan Pusey, fire Timothy Leary, I'll be invited to leave. And if I refuse to leave, society is justified in forcibly ushering me out of that particular game headquarters. You see, what I have done, if I walk in the middle of Harvard Square and say, I am Napoleon, back all those Russians to the wall and shoot them, I have confused the inner and the outer. I have confused my neurological right to experience anything I want to experience with a social and behavioral situation where my rights are rightly limited by the tribal and social game. And there are many ways, as we know, for changing the tribal and social legislative situation. Indeed, I am involved at the present time in 6 such attempts to change our laws. My profession at the present time is one that I was never told about when I was an undergraduate or a graduate student. I'm a scholar of consciousness. In other generations or in other places, I would be called a shaman or a priest or a hermetic scholar or an esoteric teacher. It all comes down to the same thing. For the last 7 years, I have specialized and worked very hard in my profession to attempt to change consciousness, to map consciousness, and to teach people how to discover their internal divinity. Now, it's built into all of our traditions and folklore that the person who is concerned with changing internal things, or the person who defends and critiques other people to change the internal situation. The person who has control of the sacraments for changing things inside should not be involved with routine, secular, or material ambitions. We expect our priests or our shamans to avoid wealth, to avoid power. The golden rule is, what I feel or believe or experience is my business. But what I do is all of our businesses, and reward or punish me according to whether I play the game well, ethically and rightly, or unethically. But there's one uneasy borderline between what is external and what is internal. And this borderline is defined exactly by the sense organs and the skin and the introduction of external things within my own body. Consciousness is altered by physical events and physical objects which impinge upon my sense organs or which I introduce into my body. Now, the name traditionally given to external objects or processes which change you internally is sacrament. Sacraments are the visible and tangible techniques for bringing you close to your own divinity. Now, the interesting things about most sacraments are, if you look back upon them, they all have something to do with your sense organs. Incense, repetitious prayer, robes and costumes, rose windows, statues, communions, elixirs. Sacraments are dangerous. They've always been dangerous. Indeed, if a sacrament is not dangerous, it doesn't work. But what do sacraments endanger? A sacrament which works changes your internal stability. It changes you inside. It alters your nervous system. It puts you in a different state of consciousness, which, if it's really a good sacrament, will shatter and permanently change many of the stabilities upon which you centered your life. But there's really very little external danger to sacraments. People who take psychedelic drugs, for example, don't murder or steal, don't get in fights. There's one case in the last 23 years of someone who claimed to have committed a murder under the influence of LSD, and that case, for those of us who know more about it, is highly dubious. It is said that LSD can cause suicide. And it's true that anything which changes your consciousness can lead to feelings of depression and revulsion. But still, the suicide rate associated with LSD is remarkably low, even in spite of the psychiatric propaganda which consistently links LSD and defenestration. We talk about the external dangers of LSD. We have to play the game fairly. We have to say LSD is dangerous in compared to what? Let's take, for example, a college education. The statistics tell us that every year 1,000 college students kill themselves, another 9,000 attempt suicide, and another 90,000 publicly ruminate about it. The number of suicides attributed to LSD are perhaps between 5 and 10, which is remarkably low considering the probably several million people who have taken LSD, which leads me to suggest that perhaps LSD can prevent suicide in many people who might otherwise do it. I consider such things as the Vietnam War dangerous to our external security. I consider race problems dangerous to our external security. I consider the pollution of the air dangerous to our external security. But sacraments are not dangerous externally, but they do inevitably stir up fear and awe and terror in the people who don't use them. We're all afraid of the other guy's sacraments. And rather understandably so, because when a person takes a sacrament which works, no matter what it is, it can be sexual, it can be monastic, when your child joins a nunnery or a monastery, when a person gets involved in a sacramental search, we tend to lose him. He no longer responds to our rewards and punishments. So we can't condition him. We can't control him. And those of us who, for even the best motives, want a society where people can be conditioned and controlled to virtue and conformity, there's nothing that can be more upsetting than a sacrament which works. Because if we know anything from history, we know that the religious person is notoriously unresponsive to the usual rewards and punishments. It's always been the despair of the bureaucrat that he shakes his fist or his club or his cross at the religious person, and he said, I don't buy it. So let me summarize. God and man and law. Secular law, render unto Caesar, all of them, what is due them in terms of external behavior. But divine law tells me that my body is sacred. I urge you, or I challenge you, don't you really feel the same way about your body? You cannot interfere with the workings of my body. Your society can't. Nor can you interfere or control my sacraments, the techniques, the visible objects or processes which I use to intensify and enhance and expand my internal vistas. Another aspect of divine law is I cannot impose my sacraments on you. We hear a lot these days about the abuse of LSD and other drugs, or the control of LSD and other drugs. To me, drug abuse is a drug in the hands of society being used on other people. The only abuse of drugs is the control of drugs by other people. Because the only sensible control of things which affect the inner workings of your body is self-control. The only control is self-control. Now let me be specific about some of these sacramental methods. Anything that affects your senses. What you see is your business. What you hear, what you allow to vibrate on the trembling membranes of your auditory system is your business. What you allow to touch your body, or what you allow to enter your body, is your business. Now, throughout history, and particularly at the present time, there's a no lack of government officials eager to define and enforce laws to determine what you and I can put inside our bodies. I refer in particular to laws controlling sex and drugs. Amphetamines, barbiturates, alcohol, nicotine are all very dangerous drugs. I would even include the poisons in this point of view. If you want to introduce a poison into your body, whether it's tobacco or cyanide, it's nobody's business but your own. Our study of the history of divinities shows us that at certain times, Krishna wants to pull down the curtain or turn off the light, and if you want to kill yourself through nicotine or cyanide, it's your business. It's my business, not society's. There's one other issue in respect to God and law and man, and that is, where do we practice our sacramental procedures? We agree that we don't want to have laws saying that Negroes and whites or Jews and Gentiles can take drugs together or make love together. That's their business. But can they do it in Harvard Square? Or can they do it here on the platform? Or in a kindergarten? This issue has been fought out and legislated both in law and folklore for thousands of years. The place that you perform a sacramental act, the place that you pursue your divinity through your sense organs and the entrances to your body, is called a shrine. A shrine is a place designated for no other game except the game of worship. If a person crosses the threshold of his shrine, whether it's his house or temple in his neighborhood, and breaks any social law, arrest him. If people who belong to our religion, which is called the League for Spiritual Discovery, leave their shrines either during, after, or before smoking marijuana or taking LSD, and they wreck cars, or they snatch purses, or they cause public disorder, arrest them. There are plenty of laws for that. But what people do in the privacy of their homes or their designated shrines with instruments which affect only their sense organs, or chemical or electrical processes which affect only their consciousness, is their business. Now the paradox is that you can't accept the divinity of another person unless you accept your own divinity. If you legislate against the sacraments of another person, you're limiting your own sacred possibilities. What we do outside, let man govern. What we do inside is your and my divine right. Thank you.